Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are having a great day so far. So today, we are going to be continuing with the next installment of our Learning Linux series, specifically on the topic of command line fundamentals. Assuming at this point, you already selected your distro and have installed it to your computer. So in case you missed the prior videos in this series, they will be linked in the description. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So starting with the shell, the world is your oyster, or really the shell is your oyster. What is the shell? The shell is basically a program that takes your commands from the keyboard and sends them to the operating system to perform, usually instantaneously. If you've ever used a GUI or GUI, you've probably seen programs such as Terminal or Console. Those are just programs which launch the shell for you. And throughout this entire course, we will be learning about the wonders of the shell. In this course, we will be using the shell program bash, which is born again shell. Almost all Linux distributions will default to that bash shell. I went ahead and opened a terminal window here just to show what the format looks like. We can see that there's a $sign at the end of the prompt, and different shells will have different prompts. In our case, that $sign is for a normal user using bash, born, or corn shell. You don't add the prompt symbol when you type the command. It will just automatically be there, as we can see. So let's go ahead and start with a simple command, which is echo. The echo command just prints out the text arguments to the display. So it's showing us the example code echo hello world. So we type that and it prints. And we can continue testing this in various ways. However, that's essentially what the echo command does. Also, when you press the backspace key, whenever there is no text, it makes a funny sound. Moving on to the next section, we have in front of us pwd, also known as print working directory. So essentially, everything in Linux is a file. As you journey deeper into Linux, you'll begin to understand that better. But for now, let's just keep that in mind. Every file is organized in a hierarchical directory tree, and the first directory in the file system is aptly named the root directory, since it's the root directory. The root directory has many folders and files, which you can store more folders and files, and more folders and files, etc. Here's an example of what the directory tree looks like. So from here we have root to bin to file 1 and file 2, etc. to file 3, directory 1, file 4, file 5, home, var. The location of these files and directories are referred to as paths, and if you have a folder named home, for example, with a folder inside of it named Pete and another folder in that folder called movies, that path would look like what is shown here. So home, Pete, movies, pretty simple. Navigating the file system, much like in real life, is helpful if you know where you are and where you are going. So to see where you are, you can use the pwd command. This command means print working directory, and it just shows you which directory you are in. So you can note the path stems from the root directory. So where are you? Where am I? Give it a try. So we have our terminal window open here, and if we type in pwd, that shows the current directory that we're in. Home DudePingu. Nice. So now that we know how to print text and we know how to see which directory we're currently in, we will go ahead and learn how to change our directory, which is by using the cd command. So let's see if we can move around the file system a bit. Remember, we will need to navigate our way using paths, and there are two different ways to specify a path, with absolute and relative paths. This is a fresh installation of Fedora. So if I type the following command and hit enter, then I will navigate to that folder. Something to keep in mind is that this is also case sensitive. So if I entered a lowercase name in the folder when it's uppercase, then it will not work. Now I made another folder inside the desktop directory called DudePingu. So making sure that the case is correct, if I enter this command, then I should now have selected that folder. So in this case, I used the name of the folder because I was already in the desktop directory. So it could get pretty fatiguing in navigating with absolute and relative paths all the time. However, there are some shortcuts that can help you. So for example, one of the shortcuts that you can use is the current directory shortcut, which is just a period. So we type cd and period, and that shows the current directory. We could show the parent directory, and this command will take us back to the directory above our current directory. So in this case, going from DudePingu back to desktop. So 2 dots. And there we are. And then using the tilde key will take us back to our home directory. So that will be typing cd and then the tilde key, and that brings us back to home. And then we can go back to our previous directory, which will be that cd command with a hyphen And that brings us back to desktop. Moving on from there, we are going to start learning about list directories. Since now we know how to move around the system, we need to figure out what is available to us. So right now it's like we're moving around in the dark, and we can use the wonderful ls command to list a directory's contents. This command will list directories and files in the current directory by default. However, you can also specify which path you want to list the directories of. So as an example of this, if you simply type ls, then it will show the one directory. However, if you type something like this, then it would show all the directories inside that folder, as we can see here. It is pretty useful. It also shows you detailed information about the files and directories you're looking at. Keep in mind that not all files in a directory will be visible. File names that start with a period are hidden, and you can view them, however, with the ls command, and pass the -a flag to it, which is A for all. So if I type to this command again, then now we can see the hidden directories here. There's also another useful flag here, which is the -L for long. That shows a detailed list of files in a longer format, and that will show you detailed information starting from the left: file permissions, number of links, owner name, owner group, file size, timestamp of last modification, and the file directory name. If we were to take the previous command and enter that command there, then we'll be able to see detailed information over here. Keep in mind this is a fresh installation of Fedora that I did not do anything to yet. So if you actually do stuff on your computer, then you should see that here. So commands also have things called flags. They're also called arguments or options, whatever you want to call it, to add more functionality. And you could see previously how we added the -A and the -L. Well, we can also add them both together, have them be -LA. The order of the flags determines which order it goes in. Most of the time it doesn't really matter, so you can also do ls to AL and it would still work. So if we go back to our command window and add that flag onto the end, then we should have even more information. We can also manipulate that command to reverse the order of the A and the L. They're exactly the same, as we can see. There are also a couple other commands that you can run. This one is R to list the contents of the directory recursively, and if we scroll up we could see that being done here. We can use a lowercase r to reverse the order while sorting, and we can use a lowercase t to sort by modification time, newest first. Moving on to the next section, we are going to learn how to make some files, and a very simple way would be to use the touch command. Touch allows you to create new empty files. So if we open a terminal window and we type the touch command and we name it something generic, we can navigate to our desktop folder and see that the file has indeed been created. So touch can also be used to change timestamps on existing files and directories. So here we did an ls-l command on a file, and taking a look at the timestamp, we can go ahead and try to touch this file again, and it should update the timestamp. So let's go ahead and touch again, and then take a note of the timestamp, and we can see that the timestamp has been updated. There's definitely a lot more that goes to text manipulation, such as text editors, redirection, and we'll get to that in a later course. So in the prior lesson we learned about touch. Let's go back to that for a bit. And if you notice, the file name did not conform to standard naming, like you may have seen with other operating systems like Windows. Normally you would expect a file called, for example, banana.jpg, and expect a JPEG picture file. In Linux, file names aren't required to represent the contents of the file. You can create a file called funny GIF that isn't actually a GIF or a GIF or however you pronounce it. To find out what kind of file a file is, you can use the file command, and it will show you a description of the file's contents. So if we open the terminal window and enter this command on the file that we just created, we can see it's just an empty file. So we're almost done navigating files, but first let's learn how to read a file. A simple command to use is the cat command, short for concatenate. It not only displays file contents, but it can combine multiple files and show you the output of those files as well. So bear in mind, we're still in the desktop directory, and if we use the cat command with the file that we just created, it should show us that it is just an empty file. So it's not great for viewing large files, only meant for short content, and there are many other tools that we use to view larger text files, which we will discuss in the next lesson. So let's take a look at the less command. If you're viewing text files that are larger than a simple output, less is more. There is actually a command also called more that does something similar, so let's ignore that for a second. The text is displayed in a paged manner, so you can navigate through a text file page by page. So we can go ahead and look at the contents of a file with less. Once you're in the less command, you can actually use other keyboard commands to navigate in the file. So for this example, I prepared a text file. So I simply named it text, and I also made sure that the file was in the desktop directory. So if I go ahead and type the less and then text command and then hit enter, it will start to produce the contents of the file. There are some other commands you can use to navigate through less. So for example, if you were to press Q, that could be used to quit out less and go back to the shell. Normally using the page up, page down, the up and down arrow keys would allow you to navigate through the documents as well. Typing a lowercase g would move to the beginning of the text file. Typing an uppercase G moves to the end of the text file. You can also use the /search function to search for a specific text inside the text document. So prefacing the words you want to search with that stroke. In this particular case, there isn't much more that we can find in this text file. So you can also press H if you need a little help about how to use less while you're in less, and you can use help. So tap to the H, and here are the contents of the help file, which you can read whenever you get a chance. So in your shell, there is a history of the commands that you previously entered. You can actually look through these commands, and it's quite useful when you want to find and run a command you used previously without actually typing it in again. It could also help with troubleshooting. With our terminal window open, if we were to type history, then we can see all the commands that we have typed previously. If you want to run the same command that you did previously, you can continue pressing the up arrow until you find the command that you would like to run. You could also run the previous command without typing it again by typing 2 exclamation points, and then it would run. If you typed cat file1 and want to run it again, you can actually just type the 2 exclamation points for the previous command, and it will run the last command you ran. Another history shortcut is Control-R, which is the reverse search command. If you hit Control-R and you start typing parts of the command you want, it will show you matches, and you can just navigate through them by hitting the Control-R key again. So we hit Control-R, and then we begin typing the name of the command, and then it will show whatever it matches to. At some point, if you find your terminal to be getting a little crowded, we could do a little cleanup using the clear command to clear up your display. So we simply type clear, and then it clears out the list of commands. So another useful feature is that there is tab completion. So if you start typing the beginning of a command, a file, directory, etc., and hit the tab key, it would autocomplete based on what it finds in the directory you are searching for, as long as you don't have any other files that start with those letters. So for example, if you were trying to run the commands Chrome, and presumably you have Chrome, then you could type CHR and press tab, and it will autocomplete Chrome. So if I am typing this, it cannot find my text or my DudePingu file. But if you did have a program, then it would most likely find that file for you. Now we will move on to CP, which is copying. Let's start making some copies of these files. Much like copy and pasting files in other operating systems, the shell gives us an even simpler way of doing that. So to demonstrate this, I created the cool folder directory inside desktop. Entering this command and hitting enter should copy the DudePingu file over to the new directory. And navigating over to the new directory, we could see that the DudePingu file has been copied over. We can also copy multiple files and directories, as well as use wildcards. And wildcard is a character that can be substituted for a pattern-based selection, giving you more flexibility with searches. So you can use wildcards in every command for more flexibility. And the 3 that are discussed here are the asterisk, which is the wildcard of wildcards. It's used to represent all single characters or any string. Question mark is used to represent one character, and brackets are used to represent any character within the brackets. So this is something you could play around with if you have multiple files of differing file types. The CP with the asterisk.jpg command for the pictures folder will copy all the files with the JPG extension in your current directory to the pictures directory. Another useful command would be to use the -r flag that we learned in the previous lesson. That would recursively copy the files and directories within that directory. So you can also try to do a CP on a directory that contains a couple of files to your documents directory. And typically that will not work because you'll need to copy over the files and directories inside as well with the recursive command. One thing to note, if you copy a file over to a directory that has the same file name, the file will be overwritten with whatever you're copying over. That's not great if you have a file that you don't want to get accidentally overwritten. So you can use the -i flag to prompt you before overwriting a file. It may be important to remember that -I flag. Otherwise, you may be accidentally overwriting a lot of different documents, and as they say, that would be no bueno. That brings us to the move command, which is used for moving files and also renaming them. It's quite similar to the cp command in terms of flags and its functionality, and you can rename files using the following command. So starting with the first command, if we type the name of one of our old files, then we can see it has been renamed. We can go ahead and open the directory the file is in. We will be able to see that the file name has changed. Now we could try moving the file to a new directory, and with this command we should be able to move it to the cool folder, and we can see cool folders here with the new file inside it. Now if we wanted to move more than one file to the cool folder, we simply just type the mv command, type the name of the first file, type the name of the second file, third, fourth, etc. And then we enter the location, and after hitting enter, we can see that the documents are now inside the cool folder. We can also use the mv command to rename a folder. So for example here, I'm changing the name of the cool folder. We can see that it is known as cooler folder. Similar to the cp command, if you move or if you mv a file or directory, it will overwrite anything in the same directory. So you can use the -I flag to prompt you before overwriting anything. And with this command, I am attempting to move a file to the cooler folder directory, and when moving it to that directory, I am prompted with an overwrite message. Typing Y and hitting enter would allow the overwrite to proceed, and now we can see the document has been overwritten. Something that can also be done with this file is if you want to move a file to overwrite the previous one, you can also make a backup of that original file, and it will just rename the old version with a tilde. So entering this command, I am aiming to do just that, overwriting with the text, however, having the old version marked with a tilde. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And to show the original file, you may need to click on this drop-down arrow in Fedora and then click show hidden files. But once you do, you should be able to see the original file as well as the new file that was copied over. So moving along, we're going to need some directories to store all the files we've been working on, and the mkdir command, make directory, is useful for that. It will create a directory if it doesn't already exist, so you can even make multiple directories at the same time. So for example, if I wanted to create a new directory on desktop called cooldude, then I just hit enter, and we can see here the desktop folder now has the cooldude directory inside it. We can also make subdirectories using the -p command before the original folder and its subdirectory. And when we hit enter, now we can see we have the subdirectory within there. So rm is the remove command. It seems that we have too many files at the moment, so let's remove some of those files. And to remove files, you can use the rm command. The rm remove command is used to delete files and directories. So right now we are still located in the desktop directory. If I were to type this command to remove the new DudePingu file, then we can see it has now been removed from the directory. Something to keep in mind about this command is that it's fairly permanent. There is no magical trash can that you could fish out removed files. So once they are gone with this command, they are gone for good. So be careful about that. And unfortunately, there are some safety measures put into place so the average Joe can't just remove a bunch of important files. Write protected files will prompt you for confirmation before deleting them. And if a directory is write protected, it will also not be easily removed. If you don't care about any of that, you can also absolutely remove a bunch of files. If we use the F flag, it would be the force option telling rm to remove all the files, whether they are write protected or not, without prompting the user, as long as you have the appropriate permissions. Now, in a previous lesson, we went over what the I parameter does, and entering the flag here, like many of the other commands, will give you a prompt on whether you want to actually remove the file or directory. And by default, you cannot just remove a directory. You'll need to add the -r flag, the recursive flag, to remove all the files and any subdirectories it may have. I entered this command to remove the DudePingu directory, and now as we can see, the directory has disappeared. We can also remove a directory with the rmdir command, so rmdir cooler folder here. However, the directory is not empty. If the directory is not empty, then we need to use this command instead, and then the directory is removed. So with all these files we have in the system, it could get a little bit hectic trying to find a specific one. And there's a command that we can use for that, which is find. Keep in mind though, with the find command, you'll have to specify the directory you'll be searching in, what you're searching for, And in this case, we're trying to find a file by the name of text. You could specify what type of file you're trying to find as well. But first, we'll go ahead and enter this command, and we can see that the text file was found. If you know more granular details about what you're searching for, you can go ahead and specify what type of file you're trying to find. Something to also note is that find does not stop at the directory you're searching. It will look inside any subdirectories that directory may have as well. Regarding help, Linux has some great built-in tools to help you how to use a command or check what flags are available for a command. One tool, help, is a built-in bash command that provides help for other bash commands such as echo, logout, pwd, etc. So if we type to this command as an example, then we can see the information that is associated with the echo command and what it does. So basically a description and the options you can use when you want to run echo. For other executable programs, it's convention to have an option called --dash help or something similar. So not all developers who ship out executables will conform to this standard, but it's probably your best shot to find some help on a program. So it would be nice if some of these programs had a manual so we can see more information about them. Some of them do. Aptly named man pages, you can see the manuals for a command with the man command. So for example, if we typed in the command man ls, then we should be able to see the manual for the ls command. Man pages are manuals that are by default built into most Linux operating systems. They provide documentation about commands and other aspects of the system. So you could try that on a few commands to get more information about them. I could attempt using the same command again on something else, and it will show the manual for that for all the commands that we've seen previously. So we have learned quite a few commands so far. If you're ever feeling doubtful about what a command does, you can also use the what is command. The what is command provides a brief description of command line programs, and the description gets sourced from the manual page of each command. If you ran, for example, what is cat, then it would show a short definition there, concatenate files, and print on the standard. So you would see there was a small blurb with a short description. We could do the same for echo, and it would show what echo does, what is ls, and etc. So understandably, typing commands can get really repetitive, or if you need to type a long command many times, it's best to have an alias you can use for that. So to create an alias for a command, you simply specify an alias name and set it to the command. If we were to use the example shown here, and we enter this command and press enter, now instead of typing ls-la, you can type foobar and it will execute that command, as we can see here. So keep in mind that this command won't save your alias after reboot, so you will need to add a permanent alias, or similar files if you want to have it persist after reboot. And you can also remove aliases with the unalias command over there. And for the last commands, we have exit. You seem to have done a good job getting through the basics. We only scratched the surface. So now you've learned to crawl. In the next set of courses, we're going to learn how to walk. So for now, you can pat yourself on the back and take a break. And to exit from a shell, you can use the command to exit or the logout command if you're working out of a terminal GUI. You can just close the terminal. So to do that, we have the following commands. Also entering logout. It's not a login shell, so we will have to use exit. Or we can also just press the X on the window. And there you have it. That's it for today's video. In the next part of this series, we will be learning some basic text manipulation, so stay tuned for that. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed learning some basic command line concepts. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. And as always, thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care.